All right, everybody, welcome to another Zoom session. Today we're going to be doing solving equations, some fun with algebra. So today we're going to start off going with some vocab, solving one-step equations, two-step equations, and then the distributive property and like terms. Um, Remember to join the Google Classroom. In order to do that, you click on this link, classroom.google.com, and then join class with the code P7DLIXC. Type that in, you'll be able to join the Zoom, or you'll be able to join the Google Classroom, which has links to the Zoom and all of the PowerPoints that we do and everything that's supposed to be there to help you with the high set. All right, so we'll start with vocab for the day. First is variables. Now, a variable is a letter in a number sequence. For example, x equals 5. The variable in that is x. Anytime you see a letter, that's just a variable. Okay, so if you see y, a, b, c, d, whatever it is, that's the variable. We're going to be solving for variables in this presentation. So make sure that you understand what this word is and what this word means. An equation is the problem at hand. So example, 1 plus 2 equals 3. That's an equation. You'll see other equations in terms of formula. So like y equals mx plus b, or you'll see quadratic formula, things like that. But anytime you see an equal sign, that means it's an equation. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. 4 plus 5 equals 9. That's an equation. These are all just equations. So just a fancy word of saying the problem. And then isolate is moving something by itself. That's a word we're going to be using a lot today. All three we use a lot, but mainly the words isolate and variables. Isolate is putting it by itself. So if someone were to isolate themselves on an island, they're going to hang out by themselves. Think of it kind of like quarantining. You're isolating yourself from the rest of the world. You're just going to be hanging out by yourself. All right. So on to the good stuff, the math. We're solving basic equations. These are the foundations for algebra. You have to know how to solve basic equations if you want to have any shot at passing this test. High set math, the foundations are that you need to know how to solve for x. So problems look like x plus 5 equals 20, 4x equals 16, x minus 1 equals 7. By the end of the lesson, you'll be able to solve these with ease. And the main way that you'll be able to know this is because there'll be an activity at the end for lesson credit. My students, if you complete those problems and send it to me with the passing score, then you'll be able to earn lesson credit for today. However, you do have to show your work and not just the answer. So if you put like, oh, x equals 20, I want to know how you got it. So you'll be able to, you have to show your work for my students, okay? So first equation, solve x plus 5 equals 20. I want you, whoever's watching at home, I want you to try solving this. You should have a piece of paper out. You should be at least trying to work as I'm doing this all with you. So take a few seconds, try solving x plus 5 equals 20. If you don't know, that's fine. All right. Honestly, if you know how to do it, it shouldn't take too long. So in order to do this, it's one step. All we're doing is we need to isolate x by itself. So we have, in order to do that, you need to subtract 5 on both sides. So the equation x plus 5 equals 20. I don't know if you get my cursor, but x plus 5 equals 20. You want to subtract 5 on both sides. You always have to get the variable by itself. So make sure x is always on its own. Whenever you have to solve for x, you have to put x by itself. So x plus 5 equals 20. The only way to get x by itself is to subtract 5 on both sides. You can do other ways to try and get x by itself, but it's too long, it's too complicated, it wouldn't make any sense. You're just going to do this, okay? So after subtracting 5 on both sides, x equals 15. Simple. 20 minus 5, 15. Take a look at the work that I showed and then compare it to your work if you tried it. Next, 4x equals 16. So before we start that one, I want to go back and show that x plus 5, you always want to try and do the opposite. So the opposite of plus 5 is minus 5. So instead of adding, you'd be subtracting. And the same with the reverse. So if it's x minus 5, you would do x plus 5 to make sure it's set equal to 0. You want to set this part of the problem, the x plus 5, and make it 0. So it just goes away. So to do that, you have to find a way to make it equal 0. So plus 5, it would be minus 5. That makes it 0. And then what you do to one side, you always have to do to the other. We'll go through it more in case I don't want to confuse you guys at the first problem. So 4x equals 16. Try solving it, see what you got to do. All right. So to isolate the variable, you want to do the opposite. So 4x is essentially 4 times x. The opposite of multiplying is division. So 4 times x would be 4 divided by x. So you want to divide 4 on both sides. You have to get rid of this 4 if it's attached to the x to get x all by itself. Even though it looks like, yeah, the 4x is by itself, you have to make sure it's only the variable on one side. So x has to be by itself. So you divide 4 on both sides. These would cross out, and so it would only be x equals 16 divided by 4, which turns out to be 4. Each side has to be divided, no exceptions, all right? Eventually it gets trickier, but this is how to solve the one-step equations. These are the very simple, very easy, just a few you should be warm-ups to you by the end of this. All right. A way to check if you're actually doing everything correct is by plugging in the number. So if you're not sure the number's correct, whatever you get for x, you can plug it back in to the equation. So right here, solve for x, 4x equals 16, we found that x equals 4. So where it says x, you're going to just put the number that you got into the equation. So 4 times 4 equals 16. At that point, 16 would equal 16, and that's correct because that is a true statement. So whatever x is, x as a variable stands for another number. It's just a missing number that we're trying to find. So as long as you can find that missing number, you'll be golden, you'll be set. So you can always plug in what you found into that x and then figure out if it's correct or not. So if you got 5 from that last equation, or if you got 12, you can plug it in, and then 4 times 12 does not equal 16. So you would figure out that, oh, my problem's not correct. Let me try something else. All right. So now it's time to get a little fancy. We're going to try mixing things up a little bit. So let's solve 5x plus 5 equals 25. I want you to take a few seconds, take about 30 seconds, and try solving with everything that we know. Isolating x by itself, doing the opposite from one side to another, so on and so forth. So just try it out, write it down on a piece of paper or on your notepad, whatever it is, and then we'll go from there. I'll give you guys 30 seconds. All right, that's about 30 seconds. Okay, so did you get 4? 5x plus 5 equals 25. The first thing you have to do is start isolating the variable. So the, the biggest thing is that we got to get that plus 5 over to the other side. You want to get rid of the plus 5s, the minus 5, all the pluses, minuses, move them to the other side, all right? The addition is the easy part, addition and subtraction. So get that out of the way first. 5x plus 5 equals 25. We would subtract 5 on each side. So that would get rid of the 5s, and then that would bring 25 minus 5, which equals 20. Then we bring everything down to step 2. All right, that's one step. So those are called one-step equations, everything that we just did. These are called 2 steps. All right, 2-step equations. 5x equals 20. Then we're going to just do what we did in the last one. We're dividing to get 5 out of here. All right, we got to get x by itself. 5 is attached to the x. 5's got problems with their x. We got to get rid of them. Okay, so get rid of the 5. Divide 5 on both sides. X equals 4. That's how you do it. It's fairly simple. It's not going to be too complicated. You're basically just doing one thing and another. All right. So what we did in these first equations, solve 4x equals 16 and x plus 5 equals 20. You're just doing them back to back. All right. So even though it looks like, oh, shoot, what am I supposed to do? You've already done it. You know how to do it. You're just separating them into 2 steps. So step 1, solving 5x plus 5 equals 25. Then, if it helps, cover that part of the problem up and then just look at the 5x equals 20 and then solve at that point. Okay? So let's try something. Let's try it again. 3y minus 6 equals 24. Take a few seconds. Let's see what you got. Can you solve for y? What do you do when you solve for y? All right. If you don't know, that's totally fine because we're going to dive right into it. So let's look at, we're doing pretty good. All right. 3y minus 6 equals 24. Remember, the opposite of minus 6 would be what? Plus 6. So 3y minus 6. We're moving 6 to the other side, adding 6. That makes the minus 6 go away, adding 6. 24 now turns into 38. You bring everything down. 3y now equals 30. Divide by 3 on both sides. Y 30 divided by 3 is 10. Y equals 10. Solving for y is the same exact thing as solving for x. All right? Nothing different, nothing too crazy. You're just solving for another letter. Everything works the same. So if that's what threw you off, then don't worry about it. We'll get them next time. Variables are the same, whether it's q, x, y, or m. X is the most commonly used. It's one that you're going to be seeing a lot in a ton of different equations, but just know you solve for it just the same. So here are 4 problems. I want you to go ahead and start practicing them. At this point in the video, you are going to just pause, click pause, like when I'm done talking. Solve all 4, show your work, because we're going to go through everything together. So go ahead and pause the video now and work on these problems. All right. I hope now you unpaused. So let's go into practice. Check your answers. Make sure for number 1 you got 6, number 2 is 15, number 3 is 4, and number 4 is 5. If you didn't pause the video, then you're probably like, how did you get that so fast? Pause the video, try it again. If you didn't get the right answers, then you can keep working with it. Sometimes knowing the answer helps out because you can at least see if you're on the right track, if you know if you know how to do everything. All right, so we're gonna check our work. All right, real quick, it's on a piece of paper because I wrote it all on like the notepad to put on and then it all deleted. So I got kind of annoyed and I just wrote it out because that was easier. Type, trust me, man. You gotta writing it on with a mouse is not as easy as pen and paper. Anyways, so number one, 6x equals 36. All you're doing, dividing 6 by both sides. X equals 6. 6 times 6, 36. Number two, x plus 10 equals 25. All you're doing is subtracting 10 on both sides. X equals 15 because 25 minus 10 equals 15. Then we get into the two steps. 2x plus 12 equals 20. Subtract 12 on both sides to get 2x equals 8. Then you divide the 2's on both sides to get x equals 4. And then the final one, a little bit trickier, 5x plus 6 equals 31. Subtract 6 on both sides, 5x equals 25. Divide 5 on both sides because remember, 5 is attached to the x. 5 times x, opposite of times, is divide. So 5 times x is now 5 divided by 5. 5x divided by 5. So you get x equals 5. If you got those problems, great job. You're doing well. If you did not get those answers, go back into the presentation, click rewind on what's on this video, and you can go back and see what you need to fix and see how to do things correct. If you need to check in, please, you may message me or you may message your teacher and they will help you out with solving these equations. So now we're going to take things a step further. By now, you know how to solve these equations. You know what you're doing. You're doing a great job. So we're going to ramp things up a little bit. All right. I know all of you are making this emoji face, kind of like, oh, how do I solve these? Because how would you solve for 5x plus 4x equals 20? What are you doing? You see two x's. All right. Usually you walk the other way, right? But if not, then you're gonna figure this out. We'll talk about it for math. Next, what would you do when you see 3 times x plus 1 equals 15? I don't know. I guess we'll have to see. So for your first problem, 5x plus 15x equals 20. How are you going to solve this? Honestly, take like 15, 20 seconds, try and figure this out. It is 2 steps, but it's one of the easier 2 steps that you're going to be seeing. All right. So solve for x. 5x plus 15x equals 20. We're doing something called combining like terms. Combining like terms, it just means that if it has the same variable or if it doesn't have a variable, whatever it is, it has to be the same. You can combine it. So 5x plus 15x, they both have one x, all right? If they had two x's, then it would be x squared, x with a little 2 to the top, all right? You'll see those later on. We'll talk about squares later. But 5x plus 15x, you can combine them since they're like terms, and so you get 5 plus 15, which is 20. And then you bring down the x. So 20x equals 20. Then you just divide 20 on both sides. X equals 1. 20 divided by 20. Anything divided by itself is 1. Anything that's divided by 0 is 0. So if it was 20 divided by 0, it'd be 0. Or no, if it's 20 divided by 0, it would be 20 because anything times 0 is 0. You're just kind of working opposite. Okay. I'll try not to confuse. So now I want you to try solving for x with like terms. So 3x is 4x, 3x minus 5 equals 20. How do you do it? Practice it. All right. Pause the video, take a few seconds, do what you got to do. But otherwise, we're going to keep moving on. Oh, we got one on the red side. So yeah, solve for x. 3x plus 4x plus 2x minus 5 equals, what is it? 20. My bad. I will fix that on the slide before it's uploaded onto Google Classroom. Remember to join the Google Classroom. Many of you are not joining Google Classroom. I only have like 3 kids in there when there's a lot of you taking the HiSET. If you are watching this past July 29th, 2021, then I don't know how many HiSET kids there are, but join the class, okay? All right, me being on my rant maybe gave you some extra time to do some work. So let's see what we got so far. 3x plus 4x plus 2x minus 5 equals 40. Okay, there's some typos in here, but okay, solve for solve for 40. Okay, go back. If it didn't work, let me see, did it work? It would work, I think. No, wait, no, it wouldn't work. Yeah, do 40. Okay. So 3x plus 4x plus 2x minus 5 equals 40. First things first, you're gonna combine like terms. So 3 plus 4 equals 7. 7x plus, you bring down the rest of the problem. So 7x plus 2x minus 5. So you're combining the first like terms and then just bring the rest of the equation down. If you want, you could just solve like all do all the like terms, but this is probably going to be easier for you since a lot of you guys are beginners at this. So just combine the 3x plus 4x, 7x, bring the rest of the equation down. So 7x plus 2x minus 5 equals 40. Now we're going to combine the 7x plus 2x, and that makes 9x. 9x, and then bring the rest down. 9x minus 5 equals 40. Then solve as normal. 9x minus 5, get rid of minus, you gotta do the opposite, so plus 5. 9x equals 45, then you gotta get rid of that 9, so divide 9 on both sides, x equals 5. 9 times 5 is 45. One thing I want to go over now that we're talking about the nines is that many of you don't know how to do multiply for 9, and there's a simple trick. So there's the finger trick. If you know the finger trick, go ahead, skip ahead, like 30 seconds or whatever. But if you don't know it, stay tuned because you can solve for 9 with your fingers. So if it's 9 times 5, you can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now you got 40, 4 fingers, and 5. All right, so we can try again. I think it's trying to see how to make it work for you guys. I don't know which way you're seeing this, how I look, but so 9x. Let me give you another one. Let's try 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, 63. That's what it would equal. You can try it with 9. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 would be 81. All right, so that's just one thing you can do with nines. You can figure out your multiplication. If you're taking the HiSET, you can do the fingers that they're not going to care. All right. If you thought we were done, we're not quite finished. Thank you, Tyler. But we got a little bit left to do. Now, let's do something called the distributive property. 3 times x plus 1 equals 15. Take a few seconds to try it. If you know how to do it, try it because the answer will be on the next page. If you don't know, let's go to the next one. So if you're trying to just pause the video real quick. But if not, we're gonna keep moving. All right. So 3 times x plus 1 equals 15. This one gets a little bit tricky. This is where students struggle the most because things can go wrong. So you want to distribute. The distributive property just means you're sharing the number throughout the parentheses. So it's 3 times that equation, x plus 1. X plus 1 is the equation. 3 has to get multiplied across. You want to get rid of the parentheses. In order to get rid of the parentheses, you have to distribute that 3 across. It's not just going to be 3x, all right? It's not just going to be 3 times x, 3 times 1. It's 3 times both x plus 1, not just only one of them. To do that, you want to multiply 3 times x. Remember how we said before, when you see the numbers attached to each other, it just means like 4 times x, 5 times x. The last one was 9 times x. That's all it turns into. So 3 times x is now 3x. And then 3 times 1 is 3. You bring down the plus sign, and it would be 3x plus 3 equals 15. You're bringing down the plus sign because they're both positive numbers. It's positive 3. 3 isn't a negative because it doesn't have the little dash in front of it. It doesn't have the little subtraction sign. And same with the plus. We could go over this in a later lesson, or we can go over it right now, but a negative number times a negative number is a positive. So 2 negatives equal positive. So if you see 2 negatives multiplied against themselves, it's a positive number. If you see 2 positives, it's always going to be positive. But if you see a negative times a positive, the negative, it's like a Debbie Downer. It brings down the mood of the positive, so it turns into a negative number. So if it's negative 3 times positive 1, it would be negative 3. But if it's negative 3 times negative 1, it's just 3. So that's how it goes. If it's a negative times a positive, the negative always makes it negative. It brings down the mood. All right. So back to the equation. 3x plus 3 equals 15. You're just going to solve as we have been. So subtract 3 on both sides. 3x equals 12 because 15 minus 3 is 12. And then you're going to divide the 3 on both sides. So 3x equals 12. Divide 3 on each side. X equals 4. That's all you got to do. It's very simple. Once you have the hang of things, don't get confused. Don't trip up too much. Just distribute. And once it's distributed, solve as normal. Everything that we've already been doing, just solve as normal. So now I want you to try this one, okay? 4 times 2x plus 2 equals 8. Distribute the 4 and then solve as normal. That's all you got to do. So pause this video, try it out, see what you get. All right. Now unpause the video, or if you haven't already, let's go ahead. So 4 times 2x plus 2 equals 8. You want to distribute that 4 across. So 4 times 2x is just 8x. So 4 times 2 is 8, bring the x down, 8x. And then 4 times 2 is 8, so 8x plus 8, because they're two positive numbers, you bring them both down. So it now turns into 8x plus 8, and then you bring down the equals 8. So 8x plus 8 equals 8. Solve for x. Subtract 8 on both sides. That makes it 8x equals 0. Remember, we got to figure out what we're solving for. So x equals anything. If it's dividing by 0, it's going to be 0. So x equals 0. If you have any questions, please send me a message, email, text, remind, whatever it may be. But let me know if you need any help with this. I want you now to try these questions, okay? For my students, as a reminder, I want to see your work from the whole lesson, all right? This is section 2 of practice section number 2. I want to see your work, and then you do the like homework of sorts, okay? So try solving for these ones. Students, please write it down and then send me your work afterwards if you want to receive credit for watching this video and participating. But anyways, equation number 1 would be 3 times 4x plus 1 equals 21. Number 2 is 2x times 1 plus 3 equals 16. And then 4x times x equals 16. What do you do? All right. So go ahead, pause the video, Take your time to try solving it. When you're ready, click play. All right, number 1, 3 times 4x plus 1 equals 27. You want to distribute the 3 across everything. So 3 times 4x is now 12x. Because 3 times 4 is 12. Bring down the x, 12x. Then it's 3 times 1. Both are positives. Positive 3, positive 1. Bring it down to plus 3. Then you bring down equals 27. Then you're just going to solve as normal. So you don't see the step, but you're subtracting 3 on both sides, which gets 12x equals 24. Then you divide by 12 on both sides. 24 divided by 12 is 2. X equals 2. Eventually, for next week, we'll be doing factoring. So you'll be able to, if you don't want to divide that 24 by 12, you can reduce the number to get a smaller number. We'll figure that out next week. If you're watching this in the future, that video and lesson are probably already up in the Google Classroom, so please watch those. Number 2, 2x times 1 plus 3 equals 16. Check your work on this one if you did it. You're combining like terms first. Whatever you see in the parentheses, you got to do that first. So if you can do it, you got to solve it. 1 plus 3 is 4. So even though the variable is on the outside, you're not going to distribute it yet. You're going to work on what's inside the parentheses. So 1 plus 3, that equals 4. So the equation now turns into 2x times 4 in a parentheses, and then it equals 16. Solve as normal. 2x times 4 is 8x. 2 times 4 is 8. Bring down the x. 8x equals, bring the rest of the equation down. 8x equals 16. 8 times x equals 16. We're going to do the opposite of multiplying, which is what? Dividing. So divide by 8 on both sides. X equals 2, because 16 divided by 8 is 2. If you got a different answer, you may be looking at, because you didn't add the like terms in the middle. Let me see, could you solve it? 2x plus 6x. 8x. Yeah, I mean, you could distribute the 2x across the parentheses if you'd like. It's just easier to combine the like terms. So if you got 2x plus 6x, that would equal 2x plus 6x is 8x equals 16. So you just kind of get to the next question, the step 2. It's another way of doing it. It's more work. You can just add the numbers inside the parentheses. All right. Anyways, 4x times x equals 16. When you're multiplying x times x, x turns into a square root, all right? Think of it as, let me write it down. All of them, I don't know if you can see that, but all equations, you can kind of see it, 4x to the 1 power, the power of 1, times x to the power of 1. The ones are always just invisible until you see a 2. One way to think of it is you're just adding these numbers together, the little exponents. The exponents are the things that are like square root to the next power. So 4x to the power of 1 times x to the power of 1, you're just going to add the two things. So you would multiply 4x times x, the two variables, it would just be 4 times 1 because it's 1 times x, 1 is just invisible. And then you add the two numbers, 1 times 1. So if it was 4x times x squared, you would be doing the same thing where it's 4 times 1x, so 4 times 1, it'd be 1, but then you're just going to add the two numbers up top. So if it's x times x squared, it's 1 plus 2, it's 3, so it'd be x cubed, x to the third power, and so on and so forth. It's a little bit confusing. You may see this on the high set where they start throwing you some curveballs like multiply 4x to the 16th power times 4x to the 12th power. All you're doing, 4 times 4 would be 16, and then add 12 plus 16, 28. So it'd be 4x to the 28th power, things like that. But We'll work on that in a later session. But that's just to introduce you if you're taking the test right away and trying to cram through everything. That's one thing we're going to touch on. So 4x times x turns into 4x squared and then equals 16. Divide by 4 on both sides. Now you get x squared equals 4. In order to get rid of the 2 or any of the powers, if it's x squared, you want to do the thing called, it's called the square root. So if it's an x squared, if you have something like this, the opposite of that is square rooting it. And you're going to just, they just cross out, all right? So it just turns into x. A square root is a number that is found by multiplying a number by itself. So 16, 64, and 144 are square roots because the number 4 times 4 is 16. 8 times 8 is 64, and 12 times 12 is 144. If you can multiply it against itself, the number that you get is a square root, all right? So you're just finding the opposite of it. Sometimes in geometry, especially in the Pythagorean theorem, like a squared plus b squared equals c squared, you're gonna find like the square roots, you can't reduce it. You need calculators for it. So if it was like square root of 15, nothing times itself, no whole number by itself is gonna equal 15. You're gonna get a decimal. So at that point, you're just gonna leave it by itself. We're doing geometry in a couple weeks, so we can go over those and how it works. But like I said, if you're just cramming or the video is not up yet, just keep in mind that you'll keep the square by itself. So 4 squared, 2 times 2 equals 4. So the square root of 4 is 2. 4 squared is 2. Okay, it is a little bit confusing. It can be a lot to kind of deal with, but anything times itself is the square root. So 9 times 9 is 81. Square root of 9, so 9 squared is just 9 times 9. Anytime you see a square, that's how many times it's multiplying against itself. So x squared is just x times x. If it's x cubed, so x to the third, it's just x times x times x. X times itself 2 times. This may be a little bit confusing. It is throwing a lot at you at the very end. We're going to do some practice, and then yeah, so this is your practice. This is how you get your lesson credit for the day. My students, I want you to work through all 5 problems, try your best, and send it to me. I want to see your work. Depending on what your work is, I'm going to help you more personalized with it. Okay, so we can see what exactly is messing up. Show your work and send it to me. Students who are not my students, please send your work to your teacher so they can see what you need to fix all of this stuff, so they could work with you a lot closer. So please complete these problems for lesson credit. If you have any questions about the square roots, squaring numbers, message me or your teacher, and we will work on that together. All right. The goal is to pass the high set. We're all here to get that high set out of the way. So thank you for watching today's video. I think that's everything. Yeah, that's the last slide. So like I said, please check in with me. As soon as you finish this video, send me your 5 problems and then the work that you did for the other 2 practice sections or any notes, and that will be lesson credit for the day. Okay. Thank you so much for stopping by and watching. I hope you all have a great day. And yeah, take care. How do I stop this? Okay. Yeah, now take care. Have a good one.